All right, this is a brand new day. I hope that yesterday went really well. I expect that it did, and that we are ready to learn something brand new today. You kind of did really well as I graded your quizzes, and I just want to make sure that you are moving forward with your knowledge. And since I can't be here, I want to make sure that continues. So at this point, please distribute or make sure that everybody has the pink worksheets. And remember that homework is also in pink for the rest of this week, is going to be collected and be entered for a grade. So hopefully you've already turned in your homework from yesterday, or you are going to when I return. This will go under an employability grade, and remember that's the same one as is for your binders, and I want to make sure that you have those in your notebooks so that you are getting credit for that. So moving on, we are going to start introducing something called inequalities. Inequalities are very much like equalities. In fact, you can see in the word inequalities, there's the word equalities. So they're very, very similar. And at the top of your paper, the pink sheet, you should see what I see here. And we're going to fill in the first part together. I'll do mine in red so that you can see what is new and added to this. So there are some rules for graphing inequalities. And we're going to graph them and solve them together so that it's really important that you know how to do them correctly. So when you are graphing inequalities, you will use an open circle. An open circle, and there's supposed to be an and there. An open circle when you have these signs, when you have the less than sign, or when you use the greater than sign. So you will use an open circle, meaning like an open circle being like an opened round. It looks kind of like that, an open circle, versus you will use a closed circle, and it's going to look like a filled in dot, essentially. You will have a closed circle when you have the less than or equal to or the greater than or equal to sign. So when there is this equal sign, this equalness, it's a closed circle. If there's no equal sign, it ends up being an open circle. So when we go to graph inequalities on a number line, again, I'm going to use a red pen to notate what is new. If I see the the inequality, inequalities are like equations, but instead of an equal sign, we have this inequality sign. It's a less than sign. So x is less than 3. I'm going to write that out. X is less than 3. And so I see that this is a less than. When there's no underline on the symbol, it's going to be, when there's no underline on the symbol, it's going to be a open dot. So I put an open dot at 3. And x is less than 3. Less than, well, what numbers are less than that? 1 is less than that, 2 is less than 3. So I put an arrow, and I shade in the arrow going in that direction. Okay, we're going to move on to number 2. I see that I have a greater than symbol, and I'm going to write this out in words. X is greater than -1. So I see that it's a greater than. It does not have an equal sign or a little line underneath. So it's an open circle at -1. And x is greater than -1. Which values are greater than -1? Well, everything to the right is greater than -1. Take a moment to make sure that this is in your notes. Shouldn't require, so greater than or less than. We call these strict inequalities because it's strictly greater than or strictly less than. And that could encompass things like, I don't know, it can encompass things like 2 2.5 is less than 3, and 0.5 is greater than -1. So it includes all those decimal values as well. Okay, moving on to number 3. I see x is greater than or equal to 4. So I'm going to write that out. X is greater than or equal to 4. So when I have this greater than or equal to sign, I fill it in with a solid dot. So at 4, I fill it in with a solid big circle. And x is greater than or equal to 4. Well, what's greater than 4? Everything to the right happens to be greater than 4. And last but not least, for number 4, x is less than or equal to -6. Go ahead and pause the video and spend a moment trying to do this one on your own. I think this is totally doable on your own. Pause the video and come back in just maybe 2 minutes for the answer. All right, at this point you should have the answer on your paper, but just to check, I see that x is less than or equal to -6. I'm going to write that out. X is less than or equal to -6. So I put a solid circle, a closed circle at -6, and anything less than -6 goes that way. I draw my arrow in that direction. All right, I'm going to do number 5 with you, and then I'm going to have you pause the video in order to give you an opportunity to practice some of this. So write an inequality for each graph. So in this one, they gave you the inequality and asked you to graph it on the number line. Here, they give you the graph and ask you to write an inequality for it. So I see there's an open circle, and it's shaded everything less than. So I know that my equation is going to be something about 13. So when I write this, it is x is something with 13, and there's some number that goes in this little space in between. X is less than 13, so I put a less than symbol, and this is for number 5. So maybe I should move that. Maybe I'll move that. X is less than 13. Because 12 is less than 13, 11 is less than 13. Go ahead and try 6, 7, and 8. Pause the video and then come back and we can quickly go over the answers. All right, at this point you should hopefully have 6, 7, and 8 done. We'll quickly go over them. So on this one, I noticed that there's a number 6, there's a closed dot, and it's shaded everything is greater than 7. So when a closed dot, it is greater than or equal to. So I need a greater than or equal to, and x is greater than or equal to 7. X is greater than or equal to 7. Number 7, problem number 7. It looks like everything is less than -18, and that it less than or equal to because there's a solid dot right there. So x is less than or equal to -18 for number 7. And last but not least, number 8. 10 is an open circle, so it's going to be a strict inequality. And it happens at 10, so x, and we've shaded everything bigger than 10, so x is greater than 10. Okay, before you move on, I want to show you, so this is kind of a mix of what you did before. It's pretty straightforward. You know how to solve this if there was an equality there, and so we're going to treat that inequality just like an equality. And then we'll just insert the equality at the end. There's a small trick whenever you're dividing or multiplying by negative numbers, but we'll get to that when I come back from my trip. When you are about to solve for x, we need to be sure to subtract 2 from both sides, so we get 3x. And then I'm going to copy down the inequality sign. -4 minus 2 is -6. And then my next step to get x all by itself is to divide both sides by 3. Divide both sides by 3. Those cancel out. X is less than negative 2. So this is what we're going to graph. So on our number line, we need to make sure we have negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 1, and 0. And it's a strict inequality. Remember what this means. It means there's an open circle. If you see this sign, there's an open circle. So we're going to put an open circle at negative 2. And then it's x is less than negative 2. And I'm going to write that out. X is less than negative 2. And so then we will have to put an arrow pointing in the direction that is less than. X is less than negative 2. Now you can do it above the line or you can do it on the line. I'm not too picky about that, so long as we've got an open circle and that it's pointing in the correct direction. All right, we're going to do one more problem together. I want to make sure that you fully understand how to do this and then finish up this activity on your own. So when I see this problem, the first thing I know that I need to do is I need to get rid of that 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I'm left with x divided by 6, a greater than symbol, and then negative 3. In order to get rid of the negative 6, or excuse me, the divide by 6, I have to multiply both sides by 6. And then x is bigger than negative 18, because a negative times a positive is a negative. So we're going to graph that. I'm going to write it out. X is greater than negative 18. So on my number line, I'm going to put, and it's strictly greater than, remember, there's no line underneath, so it's an open circle. I'm going to put an open circle at 18, and everything greater than negative 18, all of this gets my arrow. It's kind of fun to draw the little arrow there. So my expectation is now that you know these two, that you're finishing up this activity. When you are done, make sure that you complete the homework. Remember that homework for this class, homework will be collected and graded. If you don't turn it in today, then I will collect it from you on Monday. This goes into the gradebook under employability. Keep up the good work. I hope that you are doing good work, and I really expect to see those good report for students here on Monday. Best of luck, and I will see you on Monday.